tell us a little bit about how you met and sort of where you met. And
well, we actually met here in Fayetteville.
Oh, I didn't
know. Dave was representing Jubilant and had engaged the Kansas City Symphony to play at the Watson Arts Center, and Jubilant was going to be the guest artist. And Dave had this brilliant idea that we should collaborate at some point in the future. So he arranged for us to meet together, and actually we did it at KUAF. And PJ Grabowski hid me behind the door because she wanted my first sight of Jubilant to be really on air. So we, in fact, met on air, and we don't even remember. It's been more than 20 years, I guess. So it's been a great
touring and work
collaboration and friendship. Yeah.
How many dates do you do, actually, or do you still do quite a few? Or?
We haven't done as many in the past few years because his career has gone in so many different directions, with opera, with orchestra, with jazz and recordings and so. But this is always fun for us to get together. It's kind of an eclectic evening, as you'll figure out once you get into the hall. But we have a lot of fun with it.
Tell us a little bit about how do you put a program like this together? I mean, your background, you've won some absolutely most amazing and very prestigious piano competitions. Jubilant's perspective on life is perhaps a little bit more diverse. So how do you approach a program like this that has so much diversity into it? And you know, you bring a different sensibility in some way than he does, and I'm interested to know how you finalize and come to the repertoire.
Yeah. We talk a lot on the phone trying to figure out what kind of a program we think is going to work for both of us and for the program in general. But when it comes right down to it, we're both pretty convinced that if the music speaks and that if we're both committed to what we are doing, then the program is going to work. So I think, you know, I sit on the stage and I'm, as many times as I've heard Jubilant sing, I'm always moved and I'm always in awe of how he communicates, the honesty, the depth of emotion, and it's always a charge for me to be sitting on the stage. I wish you could actually have that experience. It's really remarkable. And he's such a humble man, and he's the real deal. It's really terrific.
What I find so interesting is a lot of people don't realize the kind of time you still put into your craft. And I find it extraordinary when I explain to people that a professional musician practices not just an hour a day, but multiple hours. And with the amount of demands that you have on your time, with the numbers of students that you teach, all the solo recitals, the chamber music, the upcoming concertos, it is an extraordinary life filled with music, but a lot of it is hard work. I mean, there is a lot of practice.
It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time.
Because even here, you had a number of hours scheduled in. On average, you still practice, what, 3?
I'd like to get in 4 hours every day, but that doesn't always happen. And I have, you know, a lot of teaching at Northwestern. So, but I try to get in at least 1 hour in the morning before I start teaching. And then when I get back home at night, at least, if I can do it, I'd like to get 3 hours in.
So. It is a different life.
Yeah.
Because your music life, and then there's other things in life that take over as well. So it's an interesting balance.
But they complement each other. I mean, I'm a better pianist because of the teaching that I do. I think I'm a better teacher because of the playing that I do. So one informs the other and causes the other to keep getting better.
I have found when you talk to students who say, I study with X teacher, he's a professional or he or she's a professional performer. There is a different understanding that a student gets from working with an artist or a teacher who is a working professional versus a well-known pedagogue. What are some of the things that you tell your students, or what are the things that you think they learn from you that might be different? Because I see it as a former professional musician, but I'm interested in what your perspective is with your students.
Well, you know, it's different for a pianist, I suppose, because we communicate with sound only. You know, singers have words. They can tell you as they go along exactly what the music is about. But for a pianist, everything is conveyed through sound. And so the more tonal colors, the more imaginative your sonority is, the more you're going to be able to communicate to the listener. So for me, that's the direct communication is what kinds of sound can you produce out of the instrument. And to me, that's always, we don't carry our instrument with us, so we are at the mercy, sort of wherever it is that we go. But, this is a terrific instrument, and
I think you had a hand in it.
Dale Millen and I had a hand in picking out this instrument when the Walton Art Center first opened up. So
We are eternally grateful.
Well, I'm happy that it's still in great shape. But I think, basically, communication and the means in which we do it. I mean, there isn't really any other reason to get up on stage and do it.
I know that you sort of have worked with Jubilant for quite some time and watched his whole career just blossom. And we were back in the hall, and you said to me, "Guess where he's going tomorrow?" And I couldn't believe it. And he's got this ability to stand on an opera stage, but also to stand in front of screaming fans at a rock and roll concert.
Yes.
That sort of temperament has got to be sort of mindset has to be somewhat different, and help us understand a little bit.
Well,
about
one
sort
of the gifts. One of the gifts and the abilities that Jubilant has that's completely unique. And by the way, since Jubilant couldn't be with us tonight, I thought we might just have him here just a little bit.
Good, we'll honor you.
But one of the things about Jubilant is his ability to be at home in a number of musical genre. And as an example, the perfect example of this that I was telling Peter earlier, if you just look at his Hollywood Bowl appearances, he's been there 4 times. Once with Julie Andrews, once with the composer John Williams and the LA Philharmonic as the star artist, once with Carlos Santana, and once with Josh Groban. 2 baritones. Pretty good. And he also, one thing I didn't mention about Alan, I turned the television on one Sunday morning when we were putting together these performances for the 2 of them, and the idea of the joint recital originally was to try to preserve Jubilant's voice a little bit, but it became such a wonderful treat and delight for the audiences, it just grew into the standard way they do it. And I turned on the Jerry Lewis telephone, and there they were. They called them out, and they came out, and they did their thing. But Jubilant also sang God Bless America at the Rose Bowl for the national championship college football game. He was invited by Brian Wilson to be on a performance from the Apollo Theater. He's collaborated with incredible artists all throughout his career, and I'll tell you one little secret that he doesn't broadcast. You know how Jubilant got his start? He was a backup singer for the Captain and Tennille.
Wow.
Love Will Keep Us Together. Doo-wop. And he has in his home a beautiful Steinway, and I said, wow, that is just an incredible piano. Captain and Tennille. I paid for that one. But Jubilant is an amazing artist, and he's toured with the Boston Pops. He was on their televised Christmas special, many of you may remember, and did their subsequent arena tours. Tonight's concert is an eclectic mix of different styles, and I think you'll agree after you hear him that he's really at home in all of them, or he makes them his home. And but for him, it's about being true to the music, as he would say, and as Alan shared.
Where is he going tomorrow?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I bypassed and I forgot my big ending. He flies out tomorrow because on Saturday evening, he's at Honda Arena in Los Angeles with Earth, Wind, and Fire. So,
is he singing the high parts?
No, Philip Bailey would have a problem with that.
I think so.
But Jubilant has been asked to MC the show, and then they want him to do 2 pieces that he'll be doing tonight on his own to kick it off. And so it's interesting, his career.
You've been recording Jubilant for quite some time.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about sort of you've watched his musical, he's sort of gone on a musical journey through that time. And help us understand a little bit about sort of where his mindset was when he started, and sort of where you see it going musically. I mean, as a producer, you have to sort of step back and look at artists and look at their trajectory in terms of what they're trying to say, the mediums they want to perform in, and help us understand a little bit about your sort of vision and of what you think Jubilant has done and where he's headed.
Well, the first recording that I did with Jubilant, which is the recording that's in the lobby tonight, a re-release, was done at Abbey Road Studios with the London Symphony. And it was intended to be across, it's spirituals in Copeland, many of which will be on the show tonight, but what it was intended to do was establish his classical credentials, but still in a way that demonstrated his great musicality. And the response, when he finished Were You There, which was one of the first piece we recorded with the London Symphony, it's the most amazing reaction I've ever seen an orchestra give at a recording session, because you have to be silent after the music finishes because they need trail out. And so you could just see the orchestra frozen. And then once we called cut, they went crazy because they just were not that familiar with that genre and certainly hadn't heard it done that way. But to keep to your specific point, his next recording was for Sony with Terence Blanchard, and was kind of a gospel jazz recording. And then he did another recording for Sony, which was a cover of a lot of more popular songs done with the producer Craig Street. I see him now going into another style. He wants to do something that's a little more pop, but in an accessible and beautiful way, where he can really just have some fun vocally in settings, small settings. Many of you remember the artist Patrice Rushen, and she had Forget-Me-Nots, that 80s hit, and she's a producer, and she's going to be working with him on this next recording, which will cover a lot of beautiful, beautiful songs, including some new ones, done in a really fresh way.